Here's a powerful fact. Research shows that medical costs can be significantly reduced with early testing and treatment. In fact, Medicare costs associated with chronic kidney disease can be reduced by 74% if identified and treated early. Everly Health Solutions unlocks preventive service with convenient at-home tests that can help detect potential issues early, leading to better health outcomes, potentially reducing healthcare costs down the line. So visit everlyhealthsolutions.com to explore at-home testing and enterprise-level health plan solutions. Thanks for listening today. I want to be transparent with you. Besides hosting this podcast, I also work for Everly Health, our sponsor for today's episode. However, all views and opinions expressed on the podcast are my own or those of my guests, not those of Everly Health. Welcome back to Digital MD, the podcast where we talk to leaders in the digital health ecosystem about innovation, decision-making, and how we think. I'm your host, Dr. Liz Kuo, and today I am absolutely thrilled to have Halle Tecco. We are very excited because Halle is a digital health founder, investor, adjunct professor at Columbia Business School, and previously she founded and funded Rock Health and Natalist, acquired by Everly Health. She's an advisor to the Harvard Medical School Department of Bioinformatics and serves on boards of International African American Museum and Resolve, the National Infertility Association. So, Halle, really happy to be here and have you join us. Can you tell me a bit about your career and your life and what had you start on this journey with digital health?
Yeah, thank you. So excited to be here and chatting with an old friend in healthcare. So, I came into healthcare when I was in business school and really wanted to work on something meaningful, but still something innovative and fast paced. And well, I didn't get that part, but just an area where change could happen and change was possible. And so I kind of went to business school with that idea in mind. And I say I'm probably one of the few people who actually did what their business school admissions essay said they would do, which was combine my interest in healthcare and technology, which really did not exist back in 2009, 2008 when I was applying to business school, but really had a great opportunity to kind of take those 2 years and really dive into what was happening. And this was really early in the digital health world. It was really just health IT at the time. But I had just started writing about it and talking about it on Twitter and trying to meet with folks from kind of the early health IT world and learn as much as possible. And through that, someone from Apple reached out and said, "Hey, why don't you come spend the summer here and help us figure out like what to do with the health apps?" And so I was able to spend the summer between my first and second year working for the App Store, which at the time was less than a year old and had, not a lot of apps and no good healthcare apps whatsoever. And
Hmm.
I say it has
Hmm.
less to do with my qualifications to run that segment and more to do with how little Apple cared about healthcare at the time, because really the apps that we were seeing at the time were what I would say like check the box strategy apps that were like people wanting to be
Yes.
mobile, but didn't really do anything meaningful. They were mobile app versions of a website, for instance. And so through that opportunity, I realized I sat next to the woman who covered the gaming segment, still a dear friend of mine to this day. And she would just have the coolest developers come in and out of her office working on new apps that were using every native feature of the phone and just really creating delight. And
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
was like, look, if you add up the market opportunity for gaming, social media, entertainment, like all these apps segments that were doing really well, it was like 5% of the market opportunity of healthcare. And just like that arbitrage opportunity to me was huge. I'm like, how can we have this enormous industry where we have very little innovation, very little direct to consumer opportunities? And then went back to business school, partnered up with Dr. Nate Gross, who was an MD MBA at the time, to do some independent study work around this question we had, which was like, what's stopping innovation in healthcare? Why aren't more people
Mhm.
building startups in this space? And we were able to kind of map out some of the barriers that founders faced at the time and what kind of spooked people away from healthcare and came up with Rock Health, which was kind of our solution. And so,
Your I mean, that's just really impressive because I think you not only took your background in pop health and understanding with your MPH, but also the business mindset of how do you help startups get funded and think about this space.
uh,
Can you
well, I actually didn't have
it's
my MPH at the time. I did my MPH after my MBA.
wow, okay. So
Yeah.
tell me about that. Like what's the difference in your mind about what's an MPH versus an MBA do for you?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really lucky that I have both degrees. I love school, obviously, from my resume you can tell. I love structured learning environments, and I would say my MBA helped me become an analytical thinker, helped me become a skeptic, helped me understand the fundamentals of scaling a business. And I don't think I could have done what I was able to accomplish as an investor, as a founder without an MBA, and especially because, I went to undergrad in kind of in my hometown. I didn't go to a school that has a very well-known name for my undergrad, Case Western, which if you're in the medical community, you know it, but most people in Silicon Valley don't know about it. And I didn't have like a huge network. But then getting my MBA, especially from Harvard, was like a big deal. I'm a first generation college grad, so especially big deal for my family, but big deal for me because I had a network that just didn't exist for me before. And as you know,
Mhm.
the Harvard network is so friendly to fellow alum. And it's just like it opens doors that just were not open to me previously. So I'm
What do
so
you
grateful for
say
that.
I would love to understand in your perspective too, because there's a lot of people that don't go to, let's say, Ivy League, certain schools. How do they build their network? When you
Yeah.
advise founders, what's the best way for them to expand their network that they
Yeah.
need?
Well, I do think that, you don't have to go to an Ivy League, but going to a school where folks are there because they're passionate about a certain problem, I think is really important. So if you
Mhm.
know kind of what you want to get into, if you know you want to get into digital health, for instance, going to a school that makes sense for you, but is one where like you're gonna have a lot of classmates who care deeply about these problems. And
Mm,
that means that most likely you'll have just like a built-in network of folks who go on to work in the field. And then obviously just through the workplace, through colleagues internally as well as externally, I've met so many people at networking events and conferences, which I don't do as much anymore. But when I was younger and wanted to, I met a ton of people just through socializing at industry events.
that's great. And I think we're gonna link also your blog about the difference between
Yes.
MBAs and MPHs in this.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
let me just add with my MPH because I think the difference, and I did my MPH program 10 years after I did my MBA. So I was in a very different position in terms like professionally. Like the MBA to me was a huge stepping stone, but the MPH was really personal.
mm,
I wanted to be a good investor, not as defined by financial returns. I know I'm a good investor financial returns like that's something that's like easy to measure. What I really wanted to ensure was that I was using my powers for good. And that if I
mm,
was going to invest in a company with my hard earned money or someone else's investing on behalf of another organization like Rock Health, where we had limited partners, that I was actually making an impact. And so that was the point for me to get my MPH. And I do feel like I became a better steward of responsible capital because of the
mhm.
MPH. So,
Oh my gosh, I love this. And I love also all your posts about how do you think about rewarding women in digital health with equity and how they consider themselves leaders and or clinicians and others.
yeah.
Could you talk a bit about that too? Because I think you have some really important key messages to share
Yeah.
oftentimes. And then at some point I want to talk to you about how you balance it all. Investor, teaching, family, everything else that you
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. Well, when I talk about women being underrepresented on the cap table, it's really about equity and it's about helping women financially benefit in the same way that men do. And so
Mm,
I'm always advising companies. First of all, I usually I don't think I will invest if there's not a woman on the founding team. I don't think I've ever invested in a company without a woman on the founding team. That's something that's really important to me. Whether, that's the CEO, which is great, but you know what? Like just being mindful that women are the chief the chief health officers of the home, and that if you're missing a woman's input from your early company and formation, I think that that's like a disadvantage. That to me is a red flag. And so making
Mm,
sure that, I'm working with companies that have the stakeholders represented, and that is women.
mm,
And so, from an investor standpoint, that's really important to me. And then from a founder standpoint, when we raised funding for Natalist, and then I went on and helped raise money for co-fertility as well, it was really important to me that the cap table looked like the people we were trying to serve. And that's a lot
mhm,
harder, right? There are a lot fewer women investors. We know that women are underrepresented
mhm,
at venture capital firms. We know that women are less likely to be able to be qualified to angel invest. We know that they have, their hands in more projects, and so are just stretched more thin. And so it's harder to do. So it's probably harder to fundraise with that in mind, but it was really important. And at Natalist, like, we helped women, we had a successful exit. And so I feel really good that we helped women make money. We
mhm.
returned money several times over to our investors. And so that felt really good. And I think that it's something that should just be on top of mind for founders, for employees, for investors, anywhere you are, just making sure that women have the opportunity to be owners in the company.
That's amazing. I also feel like, you've been this great entrepreneur. You've started not only companies, but you've also founded this thought leadership, this big think tank. How do you incorporate these practical experiences across all of these to your teaching at Columbia Business School? And would love to
Yeah.
know like kind of your teaching philosophies when you, let's say we're all sitting in your class, like what are your main takeaways when we come to
Yes. I
your
love that.
course?
So I've been teaching, this will be my ninth year teaching.
Wow.
It's my favorite thing that I do. Of all the things that I do. Right now I do something called a block week, which is a full-time 1 week class right before the term starts, and it helps students kind of better manage their time. So if you can get a credit for a class in a week full time, and then throughout the semester you're able to take one fewer class, maybe you can get an internship, you can do other things. So I love the concept of the block week class. It
Mm,
also means that I'm really busy for that week, but then, beyond that, I don't have as many responsibilities related to the university. So the what I really wanted to bring to the class was real world experience. And when I
yes,
thought back to my favorite classes at HBS, my number one favorite class was Vicky Sato's class. Did you take it?
I did.
Yeah,
Yes,
commercializing
yes.
science, and pairs you with a researcher, someone through tech transfer, someone at the medical school, and they, have an idea, they have an invention, and then you as a business school student get to come up with a business plan, a real business plan, and you're actually helping these scientists commercialize and get kind of the next step from bench to bedside. And I loved it. I had so much fun. I learned so much, and having Vicky kind of oversee everything was great. And so I wanted to bring something like that to digital health. And the
Mm,
way I teach the class is a little bit different. It's really on investing in digital health, and really very few students end up going into VC. A few do every year. But I think thinking like an investor is helpful in nearly every job within digital health, right? Like, what you're doing is you're assessing the risk of a business and trying to understand like the potential impact. And so the way I structure the class is that I do a very much Socratic method, kind of talking through some of the biggest issues within digital health and how to think about investing in the space. But then every day we have a real founder come in and do a real pitch. So every day they get to hear a real pitch, and then every day they're writing an investment memo. And
wow.
so they are really
Great.
honing their ability, yeah, to like critically think through the business opportunity and back up if they would invest or not, and give the reasons why. And so
It's like
it's
a
really
live Shark Tank,
it's
which
a
is
lot it's
great.
so
I
much
should
fun, and the students and they do it in groups of, like, 4 or 5, so they also get to, like, experience the dynamics of having to come to a unanimous decision, and so so they hopefully walk away they do walk away with just the ability to articulate and actually, like, write out their arguments for, what they think, if a business is worth investing in. And now that I have 9 years of investment memos, we can look back and see how they did. Like, I had grand rounds come in back in 2016, I think Owen pitched
Right.
my class, and I think they all said yes to that. Maven, Kate came in 2016,
Oh,
and
great. That's amazing.
yeah, so now it's cool to kind of see and look back at these memos. Like, are they actually good at it? And yeah, they are pretty good at it. They didn't always
Hmm.
get it right. I think for Maven, half of them said yes, half of them said no, but I think for the most part, they're pretty good.
Did you know that improving preventive care can significantly impact your health plan star ratings? Everly Health Solutions is the leader in at home testing for health plans. Their convenient, member centric approach has helped plans achieve industry leading results. In just 1 year, Everly Health Solutions helped a multi state Medicare group improve 15 of their plans by at least 1 star. That's a win for members, providers, and the plans themselves. Learn how Everly Health Solutions can elevate your health plan at everlyhealthsolutions.com. You balance so much. I want to go back to that too, like the ability to teach, to incorporate. You're also writing a book, which is really exciting. Can
As
you
you
tell
know, a
me?
lot of work.
Yes, I know. Just writing the book took a lot of energy. It took 4 years, 4.5.
God.
And I feel like by the time I wrote it for the first 2 years, it was already archaic. And I
Yeah,
had to
obsolete.
incorporate
Yeah.
everything from ChatGPT to other things that I've come across in the last year.
Yeah.
So how are you doing all this with your spare time?
Yeah. Well, I don't have a full-time job right now. I mean, I work full-time, but I don't have a full-time job. I think that's the best way to explain it.
Which
Um,
actually is interesting because I do think the next generation is moving in some of this direction. I yesterday was at a
yeah.
conference and half the people were just sort of consultants, either for themselves or part time with a company, and they have their almost own portfolio, which is fascinating. They'll be a consultant to three different companies and on one or two boards.
Ex
Are you able to manage that too? Then how do you keep it all together too on
Yeah.
what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, I actually I think I work best this way. I
Mm,
love I love having my hands in multiple projects. I love for me right now in this season of my life, I love having the autonomy. I just spent a month in Asia working from Asia, from China and Japan with my husband and my son. And, I was able to do that. I didn't have to like ask a boss if it's okay to do that. I'm able to just really own my schedule. I don't miss anything that I don't want to miss. And I'm, able to really focus on my personal goals, my career goals. It helps that I have my son is in school, so I have, I have the time. It's a lot easier now than it was when he was younger, but he's in first grade now, about to be in second grade. So that really helps. Having just one child, I think, helps too. My sister has four, and I see
mm.
just like the chaos in her life versus mine. And I'm able to say no to things. I don't have to do anything I don't want to do. And
That's
that is
really
like
great.
such a privilege. I realize like how if you would have told me that when I was 20 years old,
Yes,
I worked all through high school and college. I worked in college. Like most people do not work in college. I was
I
not
did the
only was
same.
I was a work study student, so I had like, a mandatory job that I had at the school. And then I also worked retail because I needed the money. I was paying for college. And so, what a privilege it is that like I'm able to pick what I get to do and do things that I really love. And what I love more than anything is like supporting other people on their journey in digital health and improving healthcare. So I get to do that
You
as an angel, as an investor. I'm on one board. I just signing now to join another board. So really having that ability to help others and do what I want to do through my podcast, now writing a book. It's really I'm very happy with where I'm at right now.
you touch on a few things, and I'd
Yeah.
love to kind of share and summarize because there are a few things about just the privilege that we have, whether it's moms or women trying to start families or whatnot, that we are at a key point in time where if we're able to have the resources, which I deeply feel is not always a privilege for everyone, but I'm very
Yeah.
grateful if you're able to figure out ordering from Amazon or Whole Foods or whatnot, the
Oh,
dinners that you need to prep, right? Or the
yes.
diapers that you need to buy. We are very lucky. I think the other
Yeah.
thing is how do you leverage those tools to make that happen and still find time with family and friends. But on top of that, you mentioned this thing about thinking through your career and you're at this great point in your time. I look at your career and you've had this amazing arc where you've thought about how to start Rock Health, and then you started it, and then you started other companies. Where do you see yourself going after this? Because some would say you're at the height, the epitome of what you want to be. I will have some people talk to me about how I'm on a few boards, public and private, managing a book and thinking through that. And I think for me, the key is figuring out when I have the highest energy and going in sprints
Mm,
and
yeah.
just working through those moments where I know I have a really good idea, whether it's 3 in the morning, sometimes, unfortunately, where my husband turns to me, he's like, why is your phone on? Turn off that light.
Yeah.
And I just need
Yeah.
to write things down, to the ability to just say, I'm going to get the kids to school and I need to do just a 20-minute quick workout to give myself the breathing room for the rest of the day. Are there tips and things that you do? And then that's
Yeah.
one. And then the second question is, where's your arc? Is there a much bigger plan in play, or are you thinking like this is where you've arrived and you're very excited and you're happy?
Yeah. Yeah. Such great questions. I'll start with the first one. So I used to say yes to everything and everyone because I was like just super eager and bright eyed and I wanted to please people and I wanted to be helpful and was starting kind of got to the point where I was just not then that took away from other things that I could have been doing. I didn't work out
Mm.
for years. I didn't work out until I got into a bad accident. I was rear-ended by a drunk driver now
Oh,
almost
I'm
3 years
sorry.
ago, and yeah, I mean, and but it actually turned out to be a good thing. I didn't break any bones. It could have been way worse. I have a Volvo,
Mm.
and I'm very grateful for the safety
Oh
features of the
gosh.
Volvo. But I had enough pain that I started seeing a physical therapist who I've now been seeing for now almost 3 years,
Wonderful.
and it's been kind of it's been life changing for me. I do strength training now. I'm like lifting weights. I've never ever went into a gym before. I do Pilates
Mm.
regularly. I work out 5 days a week and I just feel so much better. I never made time for that before.
Mm.
And now the way I make time for that is I say no to most things. And I'm trying to move from like the one-to-one help to the one-to-many help,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
focusing my time. If I do one phone call with someone, I get a lot of young people, like students that want my time, which I desperately want to help. But if I helped everyone and I answered to everyone that wants just half an hour to pick my brain, I wouldn't get anything else done. I wouldn't be able to work out. I wouldn't be able to, you know, write a book. I wouldn't be able to
Yes.
make money. And so I invest my time into the one to many opportunities. So
I really
blogging,
like that. Yes.
podcasting, like ways to help. And then you know what? It's funny because now I have this way message that I know you know about, where I'm like, look, people reach out to me for the same, like if you go through your email, you will notice that you'll get the same dozen or so requests.
Yes.
And
I do
so just
too.
for like sake of efficiency, I now have an away message that's pretty excessive and long, but organized and bulleted. And it's like, if you want this, go here. If you want this, go here. If you have questions about this, go here. And people will be like, I just want to, what investors should I reach out to? I have a blog post for that. Here, look here. And so really trying to still carry on my mission and what makes me feel really good and motivated, which is to help others, but do so in a way that is scalable.
I love it, and I have taken a page from your book, so I've actually set that up for myself, so I really appreciate that, and I'm looking forward to you. I think it sounds like you're gonna post about it, how you figure out this really efficient way to get people the resources that they need
Yeah.
while not taking away all of the time that it
Yeah.
would require. So,
Well, at a startup, you would like a startup scalability is constantly on your mind.
yes,
And, you have to think about being efficient with a business's resources. So why aren't we thinking about that for ourselves?
absolutely.
Yeah.
And then to come back to your career question, is
Yeah.
there an arc?
Yeah.
Are you just sort of content where you are
Gosh,
now?
it's such a good question. I think I I I don't think more than like a few years at a time because I
Mhm,
know that if I would have done that in the last 15 years, I don't think I would have seen the full range of possibilities for myself. Right
mm.
now, I am so content to be in a place where I have a lot of autonomy, where I get to write. I love writing. I love talking to people. So doing the podcast, like I'm doing a lot of things that I really enjoy. So that to me is like, I'm not going to, it's not broken, don't fix it. I'm not making any big changes in the near future. I One of my personal goals was, I want to get more experience at later stage companies. I've spent most of my career at the early stage. So the board I'm joining is a company that is later stage, which is really cool. And I think in general, just spending that's kind of I wouldn't say arc because it doesn't change things too much for me other than, working with fewer larger startups versus many, many,
Mm-hmm.
many small startups is something I do see myself doing more of in the next couple of years. And
Great, great.
yeah, and so that's why I would say, I don't know if I would ever start a company again.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I
Mm-hmm.
would raise a fund again. Like there are things I know I'm like, done it, been there, don't need to do that again. I've become an LP in some funds, so I'm involved in some VCs like that, which is nice. And that to me is like just
Satisfies that,
it
right? That
satisfies that
urge. Mm-hmm.
exactly
Yes.
without having to do it, without the sort of responsibility. I mean, I've been told many times from many people like you should just raise a fund, you should just raise a fund. But when you do something like that, it's just like a company. It's a very long-term commitment. And
Mm.
what I really like about where I'm at right now is like there's no one depending on me, so that like if I'm like I want to go off grid for a month, I can go do that. And that is like such a privilege. Like I'm obsessed with being able to do that. And
Yes.
I don't do
Yes.
that. I don't really do that, but I don't have investors that like if I had a fund and I was like, "Hey, I'm going to go work at a time zone that's 12-hour difference." They would, be like, "What the heck are you doing?"
Right.
So, it's really
Right.
nice to not have that level of responsibility, but still have like what I feel like can be that level of impact.
Well, Hallie, this has been incredibly interesting and so fun to talk to you. And I have learned a lot. And before we wrap up, we always ask our guests for their hot take on about 5 key questions. So the first one is, what's the best advice you want to give anyone?
Oh, anyone in the whole world?
Yes.
Oh gosh.
Could be life.
Like, don't be a jerk.
Okay, I like it. That's
Yeah.
right. What about favorite business or life quote? Or it could be yours or others that you've used.
Oh, yeah. I
We
am constantly telling founders, and this is an entire chapter in my book. I don't want to give away too much, but it's something I've always said, which is find an opportunity where you can align the margin and the mission. I think that they
mm,
can be linked, and too many places in healthcare, they are not, and it creates perverse incentives. And it's
mm.
one of the biggest flaws of our healthcare system. So finding a place where doing good and doing well are inextricably linked. And I think you'll find the most happiness in that place.
I'm seeing a theme here about not being a jerk, being kind, figuring out the margin. I agree with that contribution margin. Maybe certain things we've talked about, even in private equity, may not be the right thing in healthcare. So, certain things that are important to align with.
Yeah.
What about the hardest challenge and how do you overcome it?
I think the hardest challenge is facing naysayers. There are a lot of naysayers in healthcare. There's what I call the cranky old guard, and they're the folks that don't want change and don't believe in new things and are kind of just like bitter and burnt out from working in this very, very difficult industry. And so, everybody faces these folks. And I think it's really important to also make sure that you're filling your cup with folks who believe in you and who know
Hmm.
that change is possible and will be your partner in achieving that.
Amazing. What about the most exciting thing that you think is happening in health tech innovation right now?
Oh, I would say this is more healthcare, but I'm very bullish on value-based care and seeing that
Hmm.
permeate all of healthcare and digital health. And I do see founders really thinking through business models that put value first. And so to me, that's like going to be the most, and already is one of the most game-changing things within healthcare.
Great. Last thing, if you could have any superpower, what would it be?
To not need sleep. I think about that one a
That's so
lot.
great.
My sister who has 4 kids, she, like, doesn't need sleep. She can sleep, like, she's works full time, she's doing her master's, she has 4 children, and she literally could, like, sleep 3 hours and be completely on top of things. I'm the opposite. I'm like, if I get, like, 7.5 hours, I'm dragging, and so I really think not needing sleep would be a superpower. I could accomplish so much if I had more time.
That's hilarious. I do think some people don't, biologically need as
Yeah,
much sleep as others. And I think some of us are a
I've read
little bit
about
lucky.
it.
Some of us are not. So that's funny.
Yeah.
My sister also has 4 kids, and I'm very impressed by what she can do with her life.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Does she need sleep or is she one of the 10% that doesn't?
She does not need sleep.
Yeah.
I think she's pretty good at just hitting the bed and falling asleep, and she works out sometimes 5 or 6 in the morning. It's really impressive.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah.
so listeners, for more on Hallie's work or to connect directly, check her out on LinkedIn. We will link it in the show notes, and we also hope today's conversation sparked your curiosity and inspired you to explore further. I will add all the great links to her blogs, and thanks everyone for joining us. Until next time, keep on innovating. Thank you, Hallie.
Thank you.
Did you know that improving preventive care can significantly impact your health plan star ratings? Everly Health Solutions is the leader in at-home testing for health plans. Their convenient, member-centric approach has helped plans achieve industry-leading results. In just 1 year, Everly Health Solutions helped a multi-state Medicare group improve 15 of their plans by at least 1 star. That's a win for members, providers, and the plans themselves. Learn how Everly Health Solutions can elevate your health plan at everlyhealthsolutions.com.